So your first project is going to be a button that you will be making in Tinkercad. If you've gotten to the drawstring bag project, this button will look a little familiar. If you haven't gotten to it yet or are unable to, it's going to look familiar for a long time because you will be using it in next month's project as well. And this one is my own designed. Tinkercad has one in the Learning Center portion of their website, but I wanted to add a little bit more detail to let you know that even though this button is very small, it's only 3 millimeters, there is room for a lot of detail and things that you can put on there, as long as you understand how that kind of concept works. So let's get started working on this button in Tinkercad. Let's get started on your button project. So first things first, you will see me working in the Makerspace Academy Tinkercad account. At this point, you should have moved on and moved over to your own account. And that way you'll be the only one who has access to it. And just keep that in mind here. So you will be seeing me working here, but you will be working in your own personal account. All right, so upper corner, new, 3D design. And as always, first things first, renaming this, you're going to name it button underscore your first name underscore W. And enter or just click off. All right, let's get started on building this button up. All right, so we're first going to grab a cylinder. Just something to note, this button is made entirely of cylinders, from the details to the holes to the button itself. So our first button, let's get the dimensions for this first button piece. Let's get the dimensions for that. So we have our basic button that is 20 by 20 by 20, and we're going to resize that. So the shift button and hold, you're going to start shift and press at the same time on your mouse, and then you're going to start to drag it, and you can do 17 by 17, and that does it automatically. Again, or you can manually press on it, 17, tab, 17, either way. And your height is going to be at 3. Okay. And now we're going to start tweaking some of these other settings here. Let's zoom in a little bit to our button. You might notice that there are little bitty, there's a small amount of lines there. When you make a shape in Tinkercad, it's actually building up this shape with sides. And so you have this cylinder. So you have, if you remember your shapes from school, there's there's the sides. There's if you spread it out, their shape, there's a rectangle, and then there is a circle and a circle. And those circle ends, they stay the same here. And then there is your rectangle, but your rectangle is actually broken up into several smaller rectangles. I hope I didn't lose anyone. Point being, there are sides to your cylinder. And so you can change that, because when you print it, it's actually going to go 20 times, because that's how many sides you have for default. You can increase the amount of sides you have, and you can almost barely see them now. So that makes a smoother shape. Some shapes have access to that, other ones don't, and you'll learn that as you continue to work. Then we're going to do our bevel. So when I first designed this button, it was, I probably eyeballed it, so if these dimensions seem kind of weird, that's why. We're going to do 0.42, enter, and now you can see how the bevel is starting to work a little bit. The bevel means that it's adding an extra little edge to your design. You can see it's got a slight slant right there, and that'll smooth out your button just a little bit. And then we're going to add segments. So the segments means that there's actually going to add a series of lines in your bevel, and that will make it smoother. So we're going to zoom in. You can actually see there's kind of these little demarcations right here. That's 4 of them. And that means that your bevel is a little bit smoother. It's a small, minor detail, but and it might not even be affected by 3D printing, but I like to know it's there. And this will get you in the habit of understanding how that detail works. So that bevel affects the top and underside of your cylinder. But now your base is done. So our next piece is going to be the holes. So we're going to add another cylinder, and we're going to go straight to the hole one this time. I'm using pressing Shift and my right mouse button to kind of move this place down at once. And then we're going to work on resizing this cylinder. So and click this right here, and we're going to manually input 2.55 by, and then tab 2.55. And now you have this one here. This one matters a little less whether you have the sides or not, so we're not going to change anything, and that'll be okay. And then we're going to, I've moved this in front just so I can be a little more centered, so I don't have to shift and move again. And we're going to duplicate this, Command D or Control D, Shift, and we're going to move it over. I moved it over a little. That's about -5. We're going to manually input -5.1. And that is going to be the distance that matches my original design. And we're going to group this together. And those are the dimensions that I want. Okay, so why are we grouping this? Well, that means you don't have to manually move each cylinder by itself and then align them and then redistance them and do it all over again. If you group it together, you can group holes. Holes will only go away once you've grouped it with the solid. So you can group holes as much as you want, put on whatever you want until you're ready to say goodbye to them. And so you can move these like so. Now, since they have odd dimensions like 2.55 and your snap grid in the lower right is at 1 millimeter, it's not going to just center itself whenever you move it. So you have to use the Align tool, highlight both, and you see that you've done this right because you have 2 objects. That's the 2 cylinders grouped together into one, plus your base, and you're going to align it in the centers. And its underside, on the side is down. In case you think that you've done anything off, you can always just press D one more time. Make sure that when you press D, you separate it like so. Separate each item, your holes versus from your base. Highlight both and group them together. Okay, now you have a basic button, but we want to add a little bit more detail to this. So we are going to add another cylinder. And we're just going to prop that down like so. And we're going to resize this. You can do the Shift, Hold, and resize method so it does it both at once. Or you can manually put the information in. This is going to be a 15 by 15. And we're going to increase the sides, max those out, a bevel of 0.78. and segments of 4. So you can see this one has got a bit more of a curve to the edges here, and it's a little more pronounced. So we're going to increase the height of this, and we're going to use that top arrow right here and highlight it in red. And even if you manually move it, double check your align and make sure that these gray boxes are lined up. If they're not, click on them now and realign them. Highlight both pieces. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the cylinder was moved up by 2 millimeters. Go back and show you that. So, arrow, move it up to 2. If for whatever reason it's not doing that, you can manually input 2. Move this over, double check centering, and group. And your button's done. That's it. And we will talk about exporting in the future. And again, this will be printed off. So you have completed your button, and we can now move on to the next design, which is the ornament. And it's a little bit more complicated, but as you work it through and I walk you through it, hopefully it should get a little bit easier.